You're an agribusiness executive navigating an increasingly competitive market while trying to grow your company. Mergers and acquisitions are pitched as an accelerant to growth, but many M&A deals destroy more value than they create. Welcome to the Pacesetter Pod, where we explore and reveal the perspectives, insights, and approaches for successful mergers and acquisitions. Here's your host, the Integration Pacesetter, Joe Mosier.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to the only show on the internet dedicated to helping the leaders of small to middle market food and agribusinesses deliver results through better strategy execution. This is the Pacesetter Pod, and I'm your host, Joe Mosier. Let's sit here for a second and think about the goals of a merger or an acquisition. Sometimes the goal is to acquire new products, to acquire new customers, maybe get access to new geographies, expand capacity, or acquire new and promising technology. And across all the different objectives that you might have, there are a couple of ingredients that you simply cannot proceed without. One of them, of course, is the capital to complete the deal and close the transaction, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. The focus for today is talent, and more specifically, how to retain talent and preserve value during your merger and acquisition. And I want to spend a couple minutes explaining what I mean by talent and why I think this is worth dedicating an episode to exploring, unpacking, and describing. Talent lights the way to getting the expected value from your M&A transaction. And the way that you harness and protect your precious talent resources is through good, solid people planning within your M&A integration. It's incredibly rare to hear an acquirer say that in hindsight, they did a deal and found themselves suddenly burdened with too many of the right people to be successful. You might hear them say that they had too many people in general, also called redundancies, and that they had to correct that through restructuring or layoffs. And you'll certainly hear some people say they had the wrong people, which of course, is also a solvable problem, whether that's through job reductions or managing people out of the business. But what we're talking about here is that you never hear an acquirer say that as they went through the integration, they had an overabundance of the right people that they needed to get the value that they expected. What you most certainly will hear in the overwhelming majority of deals is that we lost good people, or that the change was too disruptive and our people sought greener pastures elsewhere. And very often you'll hear, we did not take the steps that we should have to hold on to the people that were critical to making this deal make sense. Now, we've worked with a number of clients over the past several years that went into the M&A planning process very gun-shy because their previous efforts had resulted in some of their best and most promising people opting out of the business, opting out and going elsewhere, sometimes going to your competitors, the worst possible landing spot for your top people. And I'm talking about rock star merchants, people that could trade the market. They could sniff out the spreads. They knew where product was, where it needed to be, and how to arbitrage that and capture value. I'm talking about raw and very promising early career finance talent, about strong salespeople, the kinds of people that had track records of success, selling the mix of products that that deal was targeting. These were not just people that were needed to make the deal successful, but in many cases, they themselves were probably going to also benefit the most from the outcome of the work. They stood to gain the most from the transaction and from the changes the company was undertaking, yet they still left. There's so many things that business leaders labor over in the integration planning process, if they plan their integration at all. But for those that do plan, it's often focused on things like consolidating your legal entities, incredibly important. Integrating financial systems and reporting, huge win. Bringing together the product and R&D portfolios, a slam dunk for long-term growth. Things like balancing production and warehouse capacity, thinking through pricing strategy, branding and marketing, etc. And they think about people. But the problem is people is not given the weighting it deserves. So when we think about people in the integration process, you will always have plans that think about compensation and benefits. What roles will people be in? What's their job titles? Do they have a place to sit? Do they have key card access to the buildings? Do they have laptops? Do they have a phone number? The list goes on. But I would argue this is not even really part of your people plan. We don't spend enough time thinking about the actual talent that sit in those roles. And most importantly, the role that they're going to play in integration success. And the impossible challenge that you will face if you try to replicate those people, fill their role with somebody else, and try to mimic the contributions that they would have made if you lose them. And then what happens? You do lose them. And you're surprised. You're caught off guard. Oftentimes, I've seen leaders that are visibly hurt because somebody opted out of the business, or they might be angry. But amid all of those emotions, what they all have now is an emerging crisis because the deal is done, the check is written, the target is set, and the clock is ticking. And those people who you were counting on to help you make the deal make sense are gone. And you're left to proceed with what's left. And in the fog of that crisis, most of us don't have the chance to sit down and analyze what happened, to really understand why they left, to understand what we missed. And we're not really afforded the opportunity to learn what we might do different next time because the demands of the integration are too great at that moment to allow us to properly reflect. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about people, and specifically people in the context of integration, the success that they create in tandem, and what you need to be doing to keep your best people as a means of getting your best outcome. So specifically, we're going to dig into 3 tactics that will help you get outsized impact in retaining key talent during your M&A integration. We're going to talk about making tough decisions on who's truly critical. We're going to talk about how to plan for retention and not hope for it. And we're going to close out by talking about the importance of communications to actually realizing your retention goals. And so with that very exhaustive preamble, let's jump in. So the first point here is, what people are we talking about? And this is where it starts, where you come to terms with that uncomfortable truth that not everybody in your company or in the target company you're acquiring offers equivalent value. And it even gets more nuanced than that. The way you assess value is time specific. Some people are going to offer outsized value in that pre-deal phase. These are the people who can ferret out risk and due diligence, people who can ask the right questions, people who have a keen sense of risk and opportunity. They're going to have the very rich perspectives that you need on the front end to understand truly what you're buying and what the promises and what the challenges of that acquisition could be. And then there's some that are rock stars when you're in, let's call it steady state operations. I'm thinking about your rock star mill manager who knows the plant, knows the people, knows how to get stuff done. Or maybe the agronomist on your staff who's just masterful at taking all of that data, those complex data sets, doing that rigorous analysis, and then somehow distilling it down to its key points, and then miraculously making it understandable to the rest of the company and to your customers. Or maybe that marketing lead who crafts that perfect prose and language and designs the beautiful campaigns that have really helped you own your space. Those are the people that you need in steady state operations. But then there are those who help you through the integration process, like the seasoned salesperson who gets the vision, who can put themselves in the shoes of the customers, who can get their head around that new and bigger portfolio of products and services that's out there, and then is just a beast of evangelism, getting all of your customers fired up about what this deal means and how it's awesome and how it's the best thing that's ever happened to them. Or maybe in the context of integration, we think about the project managers, or the people with strong project management capabilities, those folks that have a really keen eye for controlling chaos, to organize your people and your priorities during the integration. And lastly, maybe one of your most veteran department heads. We all have them. That's that person who has that uncanny knack of being able to go on site, walk an office or walk a plant, do the tour, climb ladders, shake hands, take the temperature, and engage with people on a personal level and tell them what they need to hear in a way they need to hear it that gives them comfort, confidence, and enthusiasm for the integration.
Poorly executed mergers and acquisitions destroy more value than they create. They can set your company back years. To defend your firm's position in the marketplace, you need access to the leading practices that unlock the greater potential of your people, processes, and systems. If you are undertaking a company transformation or pursuing an acquisition as a vehicle to grow, set up a call with Joe by visiting www.moshercg.com.
These are the kinds of people who stand apart during M&A integration. And these are the people that you cannot afford to lose if you want to maintain the glide path to post-deal value creation. which is really kind of a fancy way of saying getting the benefit out of the deal that you expected. M&A is a series of difficult and very, let's say, impactful choices, and this includes people. You need to look very closely at your M&A objectives, understand what is required to achieve them, and then look critically at the talent you have available to execute. And what's really important here is you need to be very vigilant and frankly somewhat impersonal in identifying those critical few who are going to have the biggest and most outsized impact on integration success. So as you're going through and as you're assessing your people, this is not about dismissing the contributions of some of your people. It's not about foregoing the potential that many of your people have. This is about getting perfectly clear on who offers that differentiated value in the context, the very unique context of post-deal integration. And I'll be honest, this is really hard. Everyone offers something of value to your organization. If they don't, then presumably they shouldn't be there or they wouldn't be there. But not everyone offers equal value. And not everyone offers the same value or the same level of value as the context shifts. So to get your people plan right, which is what we're going to cover next, you need to be surgical in thinking and identifying which people bear the most focus, which people you need a retention plan for, which people you cannot afford to lose. And this is a really important point I want you to remember. At this moment in the process, you need to favor precision over popularity. You're going to lose people during your integration. The hope is that you lose no one that you intend to keep. But the goal is not to lose no one. The goal is to ensure that the people you lose, you can afford to lose and still win. So a word of caution here. Your retention plan, your roster of the key employees that you identify, it can't be everyone everywhere. Now, you might opt to offer some kind of a retention program, say bonuses, to a wide slice of your people, or maybe even to everyone. But if you're honest with yourself, there are a core group, a smaller number of people that are going to need something more. Again, the people that you cannot afford to lose and still expect to win in integration. And these are the names you want in your people plan. So once we've got the names, and I'm not going to get into the details of how you might identify those people, but once you've got the names, the second step then, the next focus for now, is the actual retention plan, the people retention plan. So you have your short list. You're armed with a list of names of those key talent that you're going to fight to keep in service of making this deal a success. And compared to the challenge of assembling the list, what we just talked about, this part's relatively easy. Because here what we're doing is we're codifying the need to retain those names and putting together a formal retention plan around it. What's important here is that we're not going to pray for retention, we're going to plan for it. So what constitutes a people retention plan? I'm going to go through a few of these here. The objective here is to keep it simple and effective. So here's what you're going to include on your people retention plan. Of course, you're going to have their name and their role. You're going to assign some level of criticality to their retention. I've seen people use high, medium, low, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, whatever it is. You generally have some kind of a variation, a grading factor within the plan. And you're going to say this is a high retention priority, a medium, a low, a 1, 2, 3, etc. And after you've done the criticality, you're going to have your rationale. And this is really the summary statement of why they are on the list. And I would challenge to try to get it down to 1 sentence, 2 sentences max. We're not looking for a business case. We're not looking for an executive summary or full research abstract. We're looking for the simplest statement around why we think this person belongs on the list. So now that you get the name and the role, the criticality and the rationale, the next thing we try to do is document the value at risk. And the trick here is to account for what you expect would be lost if they left, not what is gained if they stay. In my experience, it's very tempting to try to quantify the value at risk by trying to put a number to what the person delivers when they're here. And there's a couple of problems. One, the gains are not only hard to quantify, but it can become very subjective. And we all tend to be pretty bullish because these are the people we already campaigned to get them on the short list. And there's so many different inputs that deliver a desired output. It can be really hard to isolate those down to just one single person's contribution. So unless it's perfectly clear what the additive value is of them staying, we advise our clients to start with what will be lost if they go. If they have a book of business with 50 top customers, how many of those customers do we think we would potentially lose if they left? What volume does that reflect? What's the contribution margin of those products? What's the impact of the overall revenue and profitability of that product line or that division or that geography? So again, try to start with looking at what will likely be lost rather than trying to meander your way through what you think might be gained. And so after you get the value at risk, then it's important to document what's the duration of retention that we're looking at. Are we saying that in the context of integration, it's incredibly important over the next 90 days? Is it a 6-month? Is it a 1-year plan? What is that? Document the duration of need. And then iron out what are the actions to retain? What are the things that you're going to be willing to do? Is this a monetary compensation with a one-time lump sum bonus? Is it a laddered series of payments? Are those payments tied to specific performance outputs? Is it some other kind of monetary financial structure of recognition? Or is it not monetary? Is it access to training? Is it a likely promotion? Is it something else as part of their development? Whatever it is, document the actions that you're going to take to try to retain this person because they're so key and important and critical to your integration. And the last thing on your plan is the retention sponsor. Who is responsible for making sure that the actions that you documented in your plan are taken care of and are managed accordingly? So that's your plan. And that brings us to the third and final point for today. You've now got your shortlist. That shortlist has been migrated into a people retention plan. You have built out the plan. And the final thing is don't keep it a secret. And this might seem incredibly obvious, but you'd be floored to know how often the names of people that are high on that retention list are the same as the names of people who opt out and leave the company in the first 90 days. And so if that happens, if we see so many people that are on these shortlists being the same people who are opting out and leaving the company, you might be asking, what's the point of making the list and developing the plan if they're going to leave anyways? Well, they don't have to leave. If you've done all this work, you shouldn't expect them to leave. But the thing you have to do is you have to tell them about the plan. You have to make it explicit to them that they're a retention priority for the company. And not just that they're a retention priority. That's easy to say. Tell them why it is. Let them know that you've actually looked at their contributions, at their potential, at their capabilities. And you've got some precision around why they are critical. And then tell them what you're going to do to help them agree that staying is the right move for them. Whether that is, like I said, a one-time bonus or a staggered bonus or access to new learning and development, whatever that might be, don't keep it a secret. Remember, you do not have a monopoly on knowing who your best people are. And chances are very good that the market knows that they're good too. And as soon as that deal is announced, and when that deal closes, when the integration work starts, and things start to get hard, your competitors are going to be in your people's ears. And you need to be there too. Tell them they're important. Tell them why they're important. Tell them you have a plan. Tell them what they can expect from that plan. And tell them that you're interested in talking about what awaits them beyond the retention plan as well. You don't only care about keeping them for the next 6 months. The next 6 months is incredibly important. It's a non-negotiable. We need you on the team. We're going to do everything we can to keep you on the team. But we also know there's life beyond integration and start talking about what that might look like as well. And in that context, retention is less a goal than a milestone. Given that there's life beyond that high pressure retention period, talk together about what that might look like. People can endure a hell of a lot of discomfort in service of big things that are sitting on the horizon. And I'll leave you with this. There's no upside to ambiguity when it comes to your best people in the immediate environment following a deal. You develop that plan, you put the right people on that plan, and you share that plan, and you'll be amazed and benefit greatly from the results that you get. So there you have it. It's a path for protecting yourself, a path for protecting your company and protecting your investment from the pain of losing those key people amid your M&A integration efforts, those same people that you need to make the business case come true, the people you need to make that investment make sense. So to recap, the 3 things we talked about: retention is about tough choices, and it's about naming the critical few. Retention in the people plan requires an actual formal plan. And retention odds are going to be greatly improved through communication, through telling people exactly where they stand, exactly how important they are, what you need them to contribute, and what you are prepared to do to make it worth their while, what you're willing to do to make them agree that staying is the best thing that they ever did. So that's all we have today. In closing, I would love to hear your stories of the great retention wins or maybe those brutal retention losses that you've experienced, whether it was through M&A or through a large company transformation strategy, whatever it might be. And especially, I'd love to hear what you've learned that's helped you improve retention during those key periods in your business cycle and your business's growth journey. So please don't hesitate to reach out and share what you know. Thank you as always for tuning in today. Before we go, a few reminders. If you haven't already, please share the Pacesetter Pod with others that you think can benefit from it. I encourage you to connect with me, Joe Mosier, on LinkedIn. Love to start a conversation there. Of course, you can visit us online at mosiercg.com. And as always, this show is for you. And we love it when you guys reach out. Let us know what topics are on your mind. Let us know what you're facing. And let us know what you would like to hear more about to better improve your execution of strategy and your post-M&A integration efforts. Thank you as always for listening to the Pacesetter Pod today. Be safe. Thanks.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.